When I was a kid, I was always fascinated by people who could juggle. It's such a captivating art. And it seems like people who juggle always seem to have their next move planned out. If they don't, their timing gets off, everything hits the ground. If you're going to juggle, there's some things that you need to know. There's some things you need to be aware of. I think that even though I'm really young and just starting out in ministry, I've discovered that juggling is an art that you have to perform. We have tons of things that hit us in our everyday lives. I mean, we have to prepare sermons. We have to teach lessons. We have to prepare to go visiting. We have counseling sessions. And then on top of all that, we need to be sure that we give time to spend with our families. Now, when I was in middle school, I taught myself how to juggle. And I remember it being really difficult, especially when you added more objects into play. The more objects you have, the harder it is to juggle. And another thing, the objects that you juggle are a key factor in juggling itself. See, there are things like tennis balls that you can decide to juggle. And should you drop a tennis ball, it'll bounce right back. And then there are things like ceramic plates. We choose to juggle this, we drop it, it doesn't bounce right back. So in juggling, there's some things we need to remember. We need to remember that the concept and the art are very similar to juggling priorities in our lives. See, juggling priorities in ministry, we have some ceramic plates, and we have some tennis ball opportunities. So my first recommendation is this, that we remember what we're juggling. I think that we need to make a list of our top 5 current priorities. And then we need to write each one down and then list scripture beside of it that tells us why the list looks the way it does. I did this for the first time a few weeks back. And it opened my eyes to how important some things in my life are and how little time I actually spend in those areas. It opened my eyes to realize that there are some opportunities in life that are tennis ball opportunities. I can drop them, but they'll bounce right back. And I realized that I'm going to have to let the tennis ball opportunities drop sometimes. But I can't afford to let my ceramic plate opportunities hit the ground, because I'll never get them back. If I don't make it to somebody's surgery, somebody will probably get mad. But if I fail to be a godly man in my relationship with my fiance, then I've dropped a ceramic plate and I can't get back. And there's something else we need to remember too. My second recommendation, the second do of juggling is this, that we need to think about how many things that we're trying to juggle. Sometimes we like to believe that we can do it all, but we really can't. The more things you juggle, the harder it is, like I said earlier. And the more things you juggle, the less time you have. The more things you juggle, the less room for error you have. And sometimes, if you try to juggle too much, you're going to drop everything. Anybody who knows anything about juggling will tell you there's a limit to how much you can juggle. And the bottom line is that we often choose to juggle more items than necessary. And we're scrambling to keep everything going. But what we need to realize is that we need to pick our priorities by necessities. We got to learn to say no. We got to learn that we have certain things in our life that we need to be juggling and certain things we don't. Another key point in juggling ministry priorities is that we realize that it requires passion and determination to master the art of juggling. There are ministries that people enter because the opportunity is there, not because they have a passionate call. And it takes very little time for those opportunities to become obligations. If you're not passionate about where you are, ask the question, why? Does God want you to be somewhere else? What is the burden on your heart? I once heard Andy Stanley say this: if your heart is not burdened with the message you are about to preach, don't preach it. I think that same principle can apply to ministry opportunity as well. If your heart is not burdened for your current opportunity, then start asking if you need to be there. Remember that juggling is a challenge, and challenging things in our life require us to have passion and determination to stay the course. Make sure that you're somewhere that allows you to be passionate and determined about juggling your priorities. My final recommendation to you is to find your motivation. Hands down, Jesus Christ is our primary motivator. He is our chief motivator. And if our relationship with Him fails, everything else drops. But also, on top of having a close relationship with Jesus Christ, we need to surround ourselves with people who will serve as our motivation and our accountability. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 tells us that 2 is better than 1. That it's better to have more people around us to support us and encourage us and give us the motivation to be determined to finish our goals rather than to stand alone. Sometimes we can reach the point of throwing our hands in the air with all the things that we're juggling in life. When I first learned how to juggle, I remember getting to a point where I felt like quitting a few times. But there was always that person there that told me that I was just about to the point of getting it down. In those moments and those words are what helped me master the art of juggling. Now, I don't know where you are right now. I hope that wherever you are, you've learned to master the art of juggling. I hope that your ministry is thriving. I hope your relationship with Jesus Christ is better than it's ever been. I hope you're getting to spend time with your family. But if you haven't mastered the art of juggling, I hope you will consider the do's and don'ts of juggling your priorities in ministry.